Today I have several acquaintances joining me, and we have lots of fun topics to discuss today. So let's get started. My topic of today is the upcoming anniversary of the ADA, and I wanted to talk about what I know about the history of the ADA and what it's meant in my life. So the ADA was first passed on July 26, 1990, when George W. Bush was president. This piece of legislation was put into law in an effort to try to level the playing field for disabled workers and students to get a fair shake in life out there. And although it did do that, from what I understand, I've actually talked to some people who have told me that they found it actually created a lot of barriers for them in their struggle, because they had, through their own, fortitude and brilliance as overcomers and self-achievers, they had found their own workarounds. And then when this law was put into place, it put restrictions in their way that greatly complicated things for them. And so when I wanted to originally do this project, I reached out to all kinds of people. I was like, hey, who wants to do a video with me talking about the upcoming anniversary of the ADA? And at first everybody's like, yeah, that sounds great, right? But then when I was reaching out to everybody to get their individual stories on the ADA, nobody was getting back to me. And when I finally got a hold of one of them, and she's the one who told me about her experience with the ADA and that it really didn't help her. And she's like, she's, I don't know, her son is about my age, so I think she's probably 20 to 30 years older than me. So she's been walking this walk longer than me as a blind American, and so I have great respect for her. And when she told me about how she saw her world change as a disabled American, someone who'd been a disabled adult before that law was passed, and then someone who was still a disabled adult after that law was passed, she just didn't feel like the law really helped her. And so I found that kind of shocking at first until I thought about it, and then I realized how true that probably is. And like I said, I was really shocked, because at first when I suggested this project, everybody was excited. But when it came right down to it, not a single person was willing to step forward with any individual stories that they had. And in 2004, I actually reached out to the ADA for help on a huge legal matter in my life. And they literally told me that they couldn't help me. And I thought, what good is the ADA? You know what I mean? Anyway, so that's my story about the ADA. Would anybody else like to comment about the ADA?
I'll go.
Okay, Leon.
Well, in my since I only been blind, going on 6 years this year. Matter of fact, I just made 6 years being blind the other day. I come to find out that a lot of people just don't know the law either. Especially in school. A lot of instructors and staff don't know the law. Mm-hmm. And as you try to explain it to them, it goes from one ear out the other until you threaten a lawsuit. And then that's when they want to get on board with it. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's been mine since I've been in school.
What's really crazy is when you try to talk to lawyers and explain the ADA to them, and they're clueless on it, so you can't find a lawyer to back you when you go to sue one of those establishments. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Yes, that is very discouraging when you feel like you have to find someone that specializes in order to sustain your own individual rights just as anyone else. It can be very frustrating. I've had to do the same myself.
Would you like to discuss that, Kayla?
Excuse me. I just went out of my own way to want to make sure that I could understand my own rights as an individual. And that was challenging to find someone who was updated on the laws, because if you are not informed, these laws are updating and amending almost right before our noses. And if you're not being diligent on keeping up on the current events, you may not even know laws that have been amended and that are applicable to you.
But what makes it worse is this. Those that do know what these laws are, some of them are the way I call it, really cheeky and will try to put a large price on helping you get where you need to be. So they tend to want to charge you more than should be fairly charged to get the law to give you whatever you need for whatever situation it may be in.
And that
it's hard.
And to me, that's corruption, because nobody should be able to try to charge a disabled person for the tools that they need to make their schoolwork accessible or their work environment accessible to them. You know what I mean? And people like that who try to strong arm and intimidate disabled people into backing down and going away, or into like giving them more than they deserve to accommodate us, it really irritates me.
Yeah, I know a friend of mine that just went through that. I had a friend of mine that just went through that not too long ago. And she lives in Michigan. And when she tried to get the ADA to help her, she found herself high and dry. As a matter of fact, in that part of Michigan, the ADA is no longer there. They left. So I'm like, this really bites. But that's what happened. And I thought that was, that's really not helping her situation at all. But this is what she's dealing with. And she's like, right now, ready to leave her home state because of what went down. And it just don't make any sense.
Yeah, you said that was in Missouri?
Nope. Michigan.
Michigan?
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else have any stories regarding this that they'd like to share?
I mean, I've gotten on several instructors since I've been in college, especially like in the fall of 2019, my chemistry teacher, he just didn't want to follow the rules until I had to just say, screw it and go report him, and I think they kicked him out the school for that. I think I was his first and only blind student that he ever came across. And I'm not going to back down because some teacher just doesn't want to do his job. There's other teachers that'll get on board besides you. But, it's just people like that just don't want to do it. It seems like I'm a burden to you, but when you sign them to be a teacher, you took that responsibility of you got to take students, all kind of disabilities and everything, not just, everyone is different. But a lot to some teachers that they don't want to take on the task of doing that. And that's what makes blind folks scared of going to school.
I apologize for interjecting, Leon, but I 100% concur. I went to a small university. Fortunately, I had mostly positive experiences, but it is sad how hard it is to, you I have a lot of thoughts here, so let me process them. It is very hard as an individual when you do not have a strong disability services to help you advocate for yourself. I feel so many times that, especially the secondary experiences in high school are not preparing students to self-advocate for themselves when they hit post-secondary education. And that is a problem. And then on the university level, if you do someone there that you can go to and that will strongly support you, such as in the disability service, it can make life miserable. And I find that that is where things really need to be addressed, is that schools really need to focus on starting to have a strong disability community for their individual walks of life, number one, and especially to advocate for those who are not blind, and having those individuals in those services that are actually educated on current technology and current, the current ADA rules, so that way for someone who could not advocate for themselves, they can stand up for them.
Can I tell you my experience I had with one financial aid person last year? She really upset me. When I walked through the door of the financial aid department, she was basically saying, who's here with me to help? I'm like, ma'am, I don't need help. I need help. I don't need anybody here to be with me. I just need some information. Just tell me what documents I need to bring for my financial aid. And she was trying to, beat around the bush. I'm like, ma'am, please just I just need basic information of what I need to bring. I can go get it right now or bring it back later on in the week. Just give it to me. And how she was just treating me like I needed somebody there to just assist me. I'm like, no, I don't need no aid here. I just need you to tell me what I need to bring, and how much I'm going to get in financial aid for this upcoming semester. That's all I needed. And she was just trying to beat around the bush and just stall for something because she didn't want to do it.
That is very frustrating. I've experienced situations like that in and outside of the school setting where people look at you like you are not independent because they feel that you need to have a care driver with you, or because you do have someone sighted accompanying you, they automatically look around you and talk like you are not competent or intelligent enough to handle your own situations. And that is something that very much needs to be educated on. And I believe that all of us are really striving to educate others about that. If we say that we can be in charge of ourselves, then we can. And we just need to step up and prove that more and more every day, like you did, Leon, educating her and showing her and opening her eyes to say, ma'am, I do not need that type of assistance. And it's very frustrating, but the more that you do it, the more you're going to show people out in the community that individuals who are blind or visually impaired are competent and intelligent to take care of their own needs.
It's really, here's my view on it. So people who come from other countries, right, who don't speak English, what happens when they go to school? They are accommodated. They are given the tools they need to succeed. And all we're asking for is similar accommodations and similar tools to succeed. We're just normal human beings who happen to need different tools to succeed,
I agree. But it also depends on what country. We're also very fortunate in some ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But because those resources are there, we shouldn't have so much trouble getting access to them in the education field and in the job field later on. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't have to fight.
With current technology, there's no reason why accommodations should not be more ready available for really almost any disability these days because of current technology. Now we're currently here on Zoom. I mean, in my younger days, this was probably not even imagined yet, So.
Well, that's what I'm going through now with certain departments in my school. Because as Joetta she can tell you, I've been fighting this battle with the math department for the longest.
Oh yeah.
And to the point, I've come up with different solutions, and it's just you have different departments in the school that just didn't want to accommodate. All I'm asking you to do is, have my algebra teacher print out my work, since math does not work well. JAWS does not work well with math. I keep telling them this. I'm like, all I want you to do is print out the homework, and I could give it to somebody. We can do it, and I just give it back. I even asked them to take it. I could take it to the tutoring lab, and the tutoring lab didn't even want to do it, help me with it. They come up with so many excuses, like, "Oh, we're so busy." When I looked around, even though I can't see, I'm like, it's only one person in here that's doing work, and they were doing English work, not math work. How come y'all can't just designate somebody in here, at least for an hour, so I can get my work done and turn it in? And I just don't understand what was so hard about that. And my ADA department at the school they're trying their best to do it, but we need more, like you said, Kayla, we need more voices. That's why I don't understand why the NFB in Houston doesn't stick up for us here. I just don't understand that. They're more worried about, potlucks and going on events and trips than worrying about our rights. I don't know about the NFB in other states or cities, but the one in Houston is that they just don't care about that. And I've been trying to advocate for that too.
Leon, I'm a member of the NFB, and I feel that education and access to fair and equal education is very important. So that's one reason why I started my channel. See, the thing with the NFB is they've got so many, pots in the fire. They've got so many things going on. And those of us who are NFB members, as an NFB member, I feel it's my place to do my part where I can. So I'm using my channel to try to educate the world on these topics, right? I
understand that,
yeah,
Becca, but I'm saying the chapter, the Houston chapter is what I'm talking about. They don't really advocate for rights, for blind rights here, because I've been fighting more than just with school. I've been fighting with our paratransit here too.
Mm-hmm.
They think we don't know what we're talking about, and how you gonna tell us what's best for me and you're not visually impaired, you're not even disabled.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling them what needs to work best for us. And if our paratransit is called MetroLift. As the fourth largest city in the world, it should be one of the best. Not best on the fourth largest, but the fourth largest in the country. It should be one of the top. And it's not. It's run 20 years ago. Technology has changed so much in the last 20 years. They still ran like it's, like it's run back in the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sad. All the tax money that people spend this, for their family members to get treated like this.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't work like that, because in Austin, the way their transit is leaps and bounds over the one in Houston. I don't understand why.
I've experienced that myself, Leon, coming from a smaller town in Indiana, and now I live out here in California. And California is so widespread, don't get me wrong. It has its own fair share of issues in the transportation, but it is light years better than the small town I'm from. I'm able to walk out right side of my home here, walk less than a half a mile, and I'm at a bus stop. When I lived in my hometown, you'd be lucky if a bus came by once an hour. And it sure in the world wasn't going to tell you no automated system of where to stop so that you could get off yourself, depending on the driver and reminding the driver. And that's one of the reasons that I still live where I live, because out here I do that as much. They have announcement systems. It's easier to get on the train. Everything is announced, not only for the blind, but for the sighted. And like I said, it's not perfect by any means, but it's light years better than, unfortunately, a lot of small towns. And I'm not trying to discriminate, but what I've noticed from my travels, especially in the Midwest and the South, it's almost like they are behind the far West and the far East Coast in traveling as well as technology. They're adapting that life a lot faster.
Kayla, I moved to Arizona. I moved to Mesa, Arizona from Montana in 2015. And let me tell you, everything you just described that you're familiar with as far as transportation and all the difficulties that come with the small towns and being disabled, that's exactly what my life was like when I was in Montana. You know what I mean? The last 10 years I was in Montana, at least the last 10 years, we didn't have any city-to-city Greyhound service anymore. You know what I mean? Like, all the blind people in Montana were literally stuck in the towns they lived in unless they were willing to pay a friend or a family member or a total stranger to drive them to another city to visit their grandma or whoever. You know what I mean?
Yes, it's very sad. It really is. I do understand that it's not as strong as larger cities, but there's got to be some way, with all the money that there is in the world, for things like this to be more addressed and for it to be more wide.
Yeah.
Well, the paratransit in Houston is not that bad. It's the people that work for the paratransit is the problem. I understand the drivers they're just swamped with rides every day. Good thing, since this virus has happened, they've slowed down. But when it's up and running like a normal day, man, they have over 7,200 trips a day. And you have dispatch that just don't want to do their job. They don't understand. Like, sometimes, especially when I'm in school, my classes might be canceled, and they don't even want to send me another driver until my scheduled pickup time, which will be 2 or 3 hours later. it's stuff like that. You have to, they need compassion. Like, hey, stuff happens, that is out of my control. I didn't know school classes were going to be canceled until I got there. But they just have attitudes, and heck, and sometimes, they'll literally schedule you to be late to go to school or to your drop-off destination. It's just, I don't understand. They just don't care sometimes because they're not in our shoes. And that's what I'm trying to address too. Like, why? What's going on?
And then completely sympathize with that. Paratransit out here, definitely a lot better than a smaller town I was from, but I had the same problem. You have a half-hour wait time. I could be standing out in the heat for an hour, with up to an hour or more with no shade, and you got to call and, hey, is my ride on the way? Okay, well, and then no one's going to call me when they get here. I said, excuse me, ma'am, I cannot sit out here over a half hour in this heat with my dog, and no one's going to call me so that I can go be inside. That's not right.
Unfortunately, that kind of transportation is what most American disabled people are expected to be, deal with when they go to work. And how are we supposed to hold jobs when we're late for work all the time, or we can't show up because our ride, gets messed up? You know what I mean? And that's really why I'm a strong proponent for us to have more control over scheduling our own rides and handling our own, transportation needs.
Right. Well, and I'm completely sympathetic to the drivers and what they have to do. I mean, they deal that they really don't get paid for. I recognize that. But at the same time, there has to be a better way to go about the system. It really kind of just needs to be reorganized. Unfortunately, it's such a monster. I don't really know who wants to take those things on, because like I said, they're not unified. It's so individualized to each city or each county. We'd almost have to get some kind of thing going where it could be nationally, but unfortunately the money's not separated that way.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've noticed, Metro up here, they use yellow cabs, and then they use the big vans that, but like I told them, I don't understand why y'all don't have, better technology, like the one in Austin. Everyone is issued an iPad. Here they still using old GPS systems, that with old roads and stuff, which, they don't update or nothing. Like, I don't understand it. With all the money we're spending, people are spending, I think they will expect, more, that the money's been spent well. The one in Austin, it's leaps and bounds.
Are you referring to their paratransit or their transit overall?
The paratransit overall in Austin is, as a smaller city, they're a lot better than Houston. I just don't understand why. And Houston's way, way bigger than Austin. And, I understand, that, Houston's a bigger city. You got more ground to cover. But, come on now. I'm trying to give you different, solutions to, what could be fixed, because, if the system goes down here, we're pretty much screwed. We're pretty much stuck until the system goes back online. That could be hours.
So does anybody have any suggestions of how these problems could be worked out?
Yes, talking to us directly, getting our say so, because we're the ones that's using this program, not them. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem. They just think, they're going by through theories, what they think we should want, but they need to talk to us directly and then try to implement that. I understand some things can't be done, but you can at least try.
Mm-hmm. The other problem with that is this. Most of paratransit is geared by people with sight. If they choose not to listen to us, and we're the ones that are actually using this. Now, there are some people that use paratransit that do have sight, but it's now growing more and more that those of us that are sighted are rather blind are beginning to outdistance those with sight. So even if we tell them when we go to these open meetings at the transit center, trying to get these guys to listen to us, that's another problem. Because even though they hear us talking, sometimes they do not put us in the weigh in on the situation. They're geared more toward the ones that, quote unquote, are sighted and have to be at work every day. Like if they're in wheelchairs, but they can still see, they seems like it gives them more preference to those that are physically disabled rather than visually disabled, which is irritating. I don't know if any of y'all noticed that, but I sure have.
I've noticed that somewhat. Because I said I've been late to school several times, which I don't understand why. When the driver said, you know what, Leon, you would have been taken straight there after this drop off, but they added 2 more trips just to, just to do it. And when I called the supervisor, she basically told me she could do that. That's basically what she said. I could, because it's a shared ride with, like, I don't know that, but you have other drivers that are just standing by. How come you just send them on there? Why would you send somebody that's on their way to school knowing that you're going to make me late? You just don't care.
I agree with that. When I've been picked up from school before and other appointments, I literally specified to even be there earlier than I needed to be, and it was still late because they picked up 5 other people at the same stop and dropped each one of them off
before you got to yours.
Which is fine because I was the last one. But how are you going to have 5 other stops? And I've clearly stated I want to be somewhere by a certain time, and you've chosen the pickup time.
Oh, you guys, I got
my hands up in exasperation since y'all can't see me. I'm letting you know.
You guys, I got so tired of being late for everything that I was scheduling my rides. So my target drop off for my destination was 30 minutes earlier than I actually needed to be there. And still, Dial-A-Ride usually got me there like 10 or 15 minutes before that point. So I would have been late. You know what I mean? Most of the time, that's how they work. And then they forget to pick you up in the first place, which makes you really late because then you have to wait for them to pull their stuff together and dispatch another ride to you.
Yeah, because I know one time, I was supposed to be somewhere right at noon, okay? So a friend of mine said, why don't you set your ride up 2 hours ahead, which would make it 10 o'clock, right? So I called at 9 that night and told him I needed to be somewhere by 9:45. Okay. Got it all locked in. They're picking me up at 9:15. Okay, so I get picked up, and this is normal before COVID, and they pick up 6 other people. Tell me why I was almost 45 minutes late. And that was with a 2-hour lead in. And that's pretty bad. But that's what you put up with. And that's what I would tell them at the meetings when I'd go talk. As soon as I find out there was an open meeting, well, you best believe I was there. And I would talk about this. And, oh, well, man, we're working on doing that better. Okay, it's been 6 months since I talked about that then. And it hasn't changed. Even though now with COVID, they have to do individual rides now.
So from what I'm hearing from us all collectively is that we need to find some way on a macular level to decide what needs to be done and figure out how it can be done on a minor level, because as I stated before, the transit is so individually operated from city to different counties that unfortunately is a little involved with this, money, so on and so forth. Really need to do some research and find out how we could go through the proper channels to start revamping, especially places like where Leon lives, where it is just like behind, like you're living in the 90s.
Well, also, I cannot book a ride on the weekends here, which I don't understand why. They just, you have to book a ride Monday through Friday. If you want to ride for Monday, you have to book it by Friday, which I don't understand. You act like stuff doesn't happen on the weekend to people. And, again, we're so behind, with the times here in Houston. It's sad, and no one seems to care. Again, back in Austin, you could book a trip 7 days a week. Heck, you can book a trip 3 or 4 days in advance. I don't understand why they don't do that here. I've expressed that, and it seems to go on one end out the other.
I completely agree. I live in one county, and I live very close to LA County as well, and so I typically had to fight to get paratransit in both places, and they just couldn't comprehend why do you need paratransit in both counties. I live on the borderlines. I'm going to be traveling in both counties, and both counties right next to each other. They have rules, different prices. So I had to learn all the different rules from both counties, even though I'm sitting right here on the borderline. And then you have, it's like you have to.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I couldn't remember if I was on mute. I had to go to the bathroom.
So it's complicating, and then they send you home with this big old packet. It's like, surely not. I don't need to know every single rule in here is not applicable to me. What do I need to know? That's not cool. And it's definitely not cool that, Leon, like you said, you can't go anywhere on the weekends. At least out here, I can schedule the day before.
Well, and it's not that I can't go anywhere on the weekends. Is if I need somewhere to go Saturday or Sunday, I have to book a trip by Friday. That's what I'm saying. I just can't, like, something happens on, to me on Saturday, something, and I need to be there Monday. I can't book a trip. That's what I'm saying. You have to do it Monday through Friday, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And that needs to, again, I'll tell you, it needs to change because life happens.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, they seem like they don't care because, like you said, Joetta, they can still see most of them.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them drive. They're not in our shoes.
Yeah, the lack of sympathy and empathy is there for sure. Because they fortunately never had to experience what we're going through.
No.
Mm-hmm. That's why, like last year at my school, we did a panel with students with disabilities, and I proposed, like, you know what? I'm the only one that's visually impaired up on this stage. How about, I take random students and blindfold them and then teach them how to get around as a blind person for a day. And I guarantee you they would fail. And no one wants to take me up on that challenge. I'll tell them it's an open challenge to anybody. Because some students they sit down and, with their legs sticking out like, dude, don't you see me coming? They're all on into their laptops or tablets. Then I trip over them. It's like they get an attitude. Like, you do know, why would you sit in the middle of the hall, not in the middle, with your feet sticking out in the middle of the hallway? Common sense would be to, put your feet, cross your feet or something, but they just don't care. You have students bump into you and just like, really?
Yeah, other interaction with other students and their lack of empathy or their lack of understanding of our situation as disabled people, that can be a huge problem. I've been pretty fortunate where I usually wind up where, like, I have an ally or a friend, in most situations when I've gone to school or tried to go to school as a blind adult. Usually there's one or two students who step forward and they kind of look out for me,
Well, my thing was I've had students not even talk to me through the whole semester in the same class. Heck, I didn't even know their name until it was time for the finals. And I would address that at school, like, really, I don't know anybody here except for the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
That's a doggone, it's like they're afraid to talk to me. I'm like, I'm not going to, like, melt or anything, just talk. I'm a normal person just like you. I know exactly what's going on in the world, just like you.
Yeah,
it
that
made some
makes it very
students
challenging in and outside of the classroom, because it's almost like, you have to prove your worth to everyone else twice as hard. And I think people forget that because they tend to just look over anyone, unfortunately, who's disabled and just be like, well, I can't imagine being in their life. And then they just walk off, a disregard. And as Leon say, why don't you just come up and talk to me? I'd be willing to educate. If you've got questions, don't feel ignorant. That's how you're educated.
As a disabled person, I totally agree with you guys. But as a disabled person, I'm kind of like, ask me whatever you want to know. And I want to know about your life. What are you doing as a person who has sight and who has all these amazing, you can do all this stuff, So, I kind of am like that, you know what I mean? At this point, it's the same thing that we wind up talking about in a lot of our shows, that as disabled Americans, or specifically blind people, we actually have a lot of really great things to offer. So when we're in a classroom setting or in a work environment, anybody who becomes our friend or associate or comrade, to walk through those situations with us, they're bound to be blessed, and they're bound to get a lot of really good stuff from their interactions with us. You know what I mean?
Well,
I agree. I also, we're talking about how we would like to reform transportation. I feel like we should also focus on having some kind of resources, maybe even classes. Now, this might not be a popular vote, but in my opinion, we need to be taught at our age to self-advocate for ourselves in an assertive, proper manner.
Agree.
People do need to learn self-advocacy, yes.
Well,
and it somewhat has to be taught, and you have to be given that confidence at an early age to speak up in a proper manner, not in a demanding way because you're entitled or anything like that. You need to learn assertive and address what you need to others. And I feel like that is missing, especially from a younger age. I grew up in very much a sighted community. Being the only visually impaired, as so much as Leon's saying in his experiences. And I was fortunate to have someone that taught me to self-advocate for myself and my own stubbornness to be independent. But, not everyone has that drive. They're a little more introverted or a little more bashful. Mm-hmm. Maybe some type of resources or classes way early on that could teach them what they need and to self-advocate for themselves would be extremely beneficial.
Can I tell you my experience as working as a blind student, as working too as a blind person at the school? I've had people literally tell my my supervisor's her boss about she's got a blind student working in the office. I'm like, okay, what difference does that make? And I've even they've even tried to discriminate against me. They've literally sent me when I did my my interview, I got a letter in the mail from the schools, and I was already working for 2 weeks when I got the letter saying they couldn't hire me because I failed a drug test and a background check. I'm like, first of all, I didn't even take a drug test, and second of all, my background is clean. So what are you talking about? They sent the certified letter to the house saying that, and I had been already working for 2 weeks at that point.
Wow.
And I still have that letter to this day. But, I took it to HR. They said, don't even worry about it. I'm like, no, I need to worry about it because you're trying to fire me for something that didn't even happen.
Yeah, I hope you verified that that's expunged from your record.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would.
That's fear talking. That's what that is. That is straight out fear. Because whoever did that, number one, did that to screen, or should I say mask, what their fears about a blind person working in the office is all about.
Mm-hmm.
That
well,
don't
the
work
thing
like
was,
that.
they were trying to cover themselves because they were getting in trouble.
What they did was basically smoke and mirrors their fear of blind people in the workplace. It boils down to the stereotypical crap that they've always believed, that blind people have no business in the workplace, and they're afraid of what they can or cannot do more on the cannot do side than anything. And since their fear is right there, this is their way of trying to get you out. And that ain't right.
Mm-hmm. I mean, being the first visually impaired student at the school for engineering, I have so many hurdles to go through. First with the math, that's just the math. And this is just basic algebra. It's not to mention the trigonometry and calculus that I have to do. But trying to set a path for other blind students to do the engineering. Even though I won't be the first engineering student in the world, but being the first one at this school is really hard. And being this trendsetter, I had to be the guinea pig of what works and what doesn't work. And it's just a work in progress, and it's just so hard. And I have the dean of engineering on my side. He said, whatever works, we can work through it. That's no problem. But it's just the other teachers. And again, like my chemistry teacher, my old chemistry teacher, I'm glad he's gone, because again, that jerk didn't even want to didn't tell me what he was writing on the board, or if he was holding up a beaker or something. I didn't know. And I told him about that. He just looked at me crazy. And I just walked out the classroom and never went back. And I told the department chair, I'm glad they did something with that, but on top of that, how I've been lied to with the department chairs, saying that they're gonna work on it, and they never have. It's so hard to get in contact with the department chairs. Like you said, Kayla, it's just that you try to speak up for yourself, but people just don't care because they're not going through it.
They're not being an active listener. And being sympathetic and empathetic and going directly to the source to find out what the needs are. And that is a big problem for sure, which I will touch more on later.
I mean, the way I look at this, it's society has heard since, and I'm going to go way, way, way back, the 1920s, when they used to put blind people in sanitariums and asylums because they didn't know what to do with them. It was like the vision switched off. They thought your brain switched off. Not about the knowledge you have or the work experience you have, but all of a sudden it's gone because you can't see. And that didn't stop. Let's see. The last person they put into asylum was recently, if I remember correctly, 72. And they stopped all that when they realized we still have a working mind. And there's nothing wrong with our mind, it's just our vision. But still, they had this fear, oh, well, she may not perform well, or he may not do what he used to know how to do as accurately or as fast as he did before. Not the fact that you want to give us a chance, but you just want to totally shut it down. How is that fair? And then they wonder why, quote unquote, most blind people would get angry. Well, it ain't about that I found that out real quick. Some people just got angry because all of a sudden they can't do what they used to do anymore. Not the fact that they can adapt and adjust because they want to go back to their old lifestyle, but they can't because of their vision. So they get mad. Then you got others who do adapt and adjust, but they don't give us the chance to show them we did. And that's where that fear falls in. And I still say, how is that fair? How do y'all not give us the chance to prove what we know and what we can do? Am I wrong?
No.
No, ma'am.
Okay. It's annoying. What you think, Becca?
I definitely agree with you 100%, Joetta. You're right on target there, woman.
Okay. Okay. Miss Kayla, waiting on you.
I concur, and I can very much empathize and sympathize with Leon going to a smaller university, although there were other visually impaired students or blind students. I was the first one to kind of really go through the music program. Obviously, majority of that was not adaptable. Number one, of the generation that I grew up in, exposed to a lot of technology before college, so I didn't really know what was available to me. That's an issue. And number two, the technology was somewhat behind there and where I needed it to be at that point in my collegiate studies. So, I was way more advanced, where I needed to be for the assistive technology. Therefore, I advocate for myself about what I needed. You do have to go and address someone and find out what it is you're going to need. Okay, like for example, what kind of studies you're going to be doing, so that you can address and figure out how you're going to do things. May I also just address that not every blind person is going to the same. We are each individualized just like everyone else. Just because one person of VI does something one way, we also have to break that mold for other individuals, especially under educators and employers, that just set A did those things that way doesn't mean I'm set B and I'm going to do those things the same.
Yeah, everybody has to
can I
learn
intervene with that right quick?
Yeah.
My last math teacher for the spring of 2020 semester, he was a great teacher, but he was saying, I seen another visually impaired student do the math, but I'm like, what could he still see? Y'all lump us all together into the same category.
Yes.
I got to tell them, I'm totally blind. I don't see anything. I don't even have light perception. But if you tell me what to do, I can do it. Mm-hmm. And I had to explain that to them. There's different levels of visual impairedness. Mm-hmm. Some people, they're visually impaired, but they still can. Some of them can still drive. It's not at night, but on a bright sunny day, you can't stop them. But once it starts turning dusk, they have to be home. Like I tell them that, there's different levels to blindness. Again, with me, I'm more hands-on, or if you tell me what to do. The other people, Zoom texts, it's for, they probably didn't have jobs. They probably had Zoom texts, and again, they can still see. And I had to explain that to him.
And you're also touching
until he finally got it.
And also, Leon, you're also touching on not just someone who, talking about someone who's blind, you're just talking about people on an individual level as well. Each person it's a learning language. Some people are visual, some people are auditorial, some people are tactual, visual.
Right.
It's very important that each person realizes their set way of learning so that they can adapt, not only as sighted or visually impaired. And it's very important to learn that so that you can express those needs. I need to see that with my eyes. I need you to explain that to me, and auditorily, I need someone to help me make a model so that I can touch that. You have to be very clear on what you want, and sometimes that's hard. And that's where we've talked a lot about trying to implement that self-advocacy at a young age, so that you can figure out your style of learning and what you are. And addressing those from the jump, so that way things are a lot easier, not only for yourself, but for the people who are trying to assist you.
Well, my counselor at the school, she was saying, we have so many different 3D printers. How come they're not frying them up and printing out math models? I'm like, that's a good idea. I didn't even know we had that. Yeah. And it's not that hard. All you have to do is somebody in the math department can just, send an assistant down there, ask the teacher, what to print out their printer and print it out. What's so hard about that?
And the fact that you didn't even know that was available to you is very sad. I'm glad that you do now. And see, and that's um, very much of what I've been talking about and what I want to talk about is, number one, you have to know what resources are available to you, and that's hard to do because they're so different everywhere. You know, like you're saying, you didn't even know they had that there. That was a resource you could have been using from the start, not only to enhance your learning, but to also probably enhance your peers' learning. Maybe a model would be good for them. Sometimes, unfortunately, we have to express, hey, what's good for me is also good for the gander. Things get done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very frustrating in the moment. I completely understand, as I was describing my very basic viewpoints earlier of my experiences. It's very frustrating. So I just don't understand why, and it could easily be why don't colleges, if you're going to, well, with open arms, quote unquote, there should be a list of what technology is around, what resources, just for people who are disabled, but for those sighted individuals, because that's going to enhance their learning. As a fact, as I was just saying, each person has a way of their learning style.
Mm-hmm.
It's
true.
more or less a way of each one teach one, because while you're learning through a model, they're learning from you how to help another person that could be in the same position one day later on down the line.
Right, or it may not even have to do with sight per se. Let's say
right.
your classmate would benefit from learning textually from those 3D models.
Right.
From a visual aspect or touching it. You know, that's not just for you. And I hope maybe that could help you in the future to say, as I said, what's good for you is good for the gander, you know, good for the goose is good for the gander kind of vibe. Sometimes we have to express that so that things can be done for us. And I hope that people can understand that and take that viewpoint for themselves. Sometimes we have to be creative intellectually, which I know we're all capable of, so that we can get done what should already be giving to us. Number one, that's the frustrating. Sometimes you have to turn on a little charm, you know, to realize, to open people's minds. This is not just for me. This is for everyone.
Well, you know, like I told Joetta a few weeks ago, when I first started, you know, doing my basic classes, you know, it was easy since it was just reading. But once it got to more of the scientific and math, I had to sit back and think. I can't approach it like I did with my other classes, you know. And I had to come to that realization, and that was part of me not doing so with the math at first, because I was trying to attack it like I did with my other classes. And you know, now I'm in a whole different ball game now. And it took me a while to come to that realization, like, hey, you know, with the math, with the algebra, you can't attack it like you did with history or with sociology. It's a whole different level of learning now.
I would agree, because if you're anything like me, I'm a visual math learner. Quite the conundrum, I know. But back when I had a little more sight, I stood up for myself and said, look, you know, I need a tutor. I need someone to work with me. And somebody's going to have to figure out how to pay them, or you're going to have to find a volunteer, because that was just the fact of the matter. If I was going to be successful and keep up with my peers, I literally met with a tutor on the days I didn't go to class so she could teach me, because it was just not accessible. Listen to her up there on drawing diagrams and so on and so forth. Not that she wasn't a great teacher. It's just sometimes we do need a little more accommodation, and there's nothing wrong with that. Speaking up for your and that I need assistance is not a bad thing. That's how you're going to get through in life, no matter your ability or disability. You know, so that things can be larger for me and bold, and so, you know, sometimes it goes back to realizing what is actually available for us, and your school should be help providing those people to either come in the classroom with you or meet outside of the classroom, or both.
Well, that's been the problem since I started with the algebra. You know, my first algebra teacher, you know, in my intro to algebra class, you know, good thing it was doing summer session. Wasn't that many students in the classroom, and that's how I did my work before or after class with him. That's how I even did my test with him. But I don't have, I've had pretty good teachers after that. But again, they don't have the time because a lot of them are coming from other campuses too. And like you said about the tutor, I've literally had to go to my counselor outside of school, my Texas workforce counselor, and she said, Leon, we could have been got to pay for you for a tutor. Just find anybody that can tutor you, and we'll pay for it. So that's where I'm at now with that step. With that process, I'm in the middle of that right now.
But it would have been a lot more convenient to know that from the jump, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm,
Why wasn't that expressed early on when you were expressing that you were having issues?
Mm-hmm. Well, this is my second counselor with the state because my other I didn't know I had another counselor until the end of last year, which really upset me about that. And then they had moved to different office buildings and everything. I didn't know. But now, everything's, it's starting to line up. And again, I had to call my O&M instructor. He's cited and he knows a bunch of people, that are good at math that can tutor me. And so I gave him my counselor's email and everything. So they're working through that process right now. All I have to do is find what teacher's good with me now. And so, we can get this started. Because last semester, I came up with the idea is, again, tell my teacher to give me the work. And instead of me being in classroom, because I'm not going to learn anything, because again, what you're writing up there or saying is going to one out the other with me. All you have to, just give me the work and tell me what chapters to do in the book. And I can take it to a tutor while class is in session, and get the credit for that. I'm like, again, like I told my counselor at school, what's the purpose of me even going to the classroom if I'm not learning? I'm just wasting space. Mm-hmm. And they had to understand where I was coming from, and they agreed. But then again, I had to find a tutor.
I'm surprised that your school didn't go upon themselves to help you find an upperclassman. Because number one, they've already done the class. Or two, that's going to be a great learning experience for them if they're wanting to major in that field, especially if they want to be a teacher. That's what I very much tried to do, and very sorry to hear that your corner at your college was not advocating for you. If you spoke up and said you needed someone, they should have helped you find someone. Sorry to hear that. I hope my
counselor, what she did, I'm sorry, Kayla, but my counselor, she had to create a program for volunteers to help me. She really had to do that, get the permission from the school to create it. And she found volunteers because they were in an honor society, because what they needed 30 hours each, so staying with me with the tutoring and helping me do my work, that was just easy peasy for them. They ain't got to go anywhere, just stay right there for, do that 30 hours for the semester, and they got their credit for it.
Right, that's a great idea.
Until the virus happened.
Places would implement that. It's very much something like that at a, upperclassmen who are specialized in that major and are willing to volunteer or be paid to assist me. And it's right there on campus. They're making extra cash or applying credits, and that's a great idea. More places definitely need to implement that kind of program.
Just wish more schools were having these places set in position where there can be a designated advocate or group of advocates that could help blind students feel work their way through the school, work their way through the courses, have the knowledge aforehand before to know when these guys and gals need their tutors, when they need.
We do have that in my school. It got implemented this past semester. It's called Dream.
Because otherwise they had to do what you did. It was do a startup program just for that purpose.
And the only reason why I got started because I got fed up with the way we were being treated. I got fed up with it. I said I wasn't taking it anymore. And my the head counselor at the school, he said, you know what, and I feel your pain since I'm disabled too. and it's called DREAM, disability rights, education, and advocacy and mentorship. I did not know there was a nationwide thing, but it needs to be implemented in all schools, in all colleges and universities. It needs to be implemented in that. It's not just for visually impaired students, it's for students with disabilities, period.
Right.
It sounds like to me what we're saying is places of education need to be more open to dialogue. Somewhere where not only disabled students can go, but any students, and speak up for themselves or their student body and say, this is what's going on. I think this is how this could be done differently, not only to benefit myself, but other students.
You'd be surprised at how much more the college experience would be enriched if this was in place.
So it seems like what we're discussing overall is what I want to touch on, which I already have, is self-advocacy. If you are a person who is disabled, it is very important for you to be able to express and communicate your own needs in a proper channel. Unfortunately, as we've discussed, that's kind of hard to know what to do. There's not really a step-by-step process that is informed to most individuals. Say if you're going to enter the post-secondary education, you should try to get started on these in high school. Number one, figuring out how you learn. Number two, figuring out who you can talk to advocate for yourself. If you are planning on going to post-secondary education, figuring out where you're going to apply, researching what would be available to you to attend that university or school is very important. What kind of support are you going to have? So number one, contacting a counselor at that institution, asking them questions. I contacted them saying, I am an individual who is interested in your school. What would you be able to provide to me as an individual who's blind or visually impaired? Number two, do you have a disability services at your institution that I can directly report to and talk to about issues and to work with me in order to implement the things that I need in the classroom? Those are I'd say two major components. I could even apply to work. Figuring out what they have available for you from the get-go is very important. And figuring out if there's someone there that you can talk to that is going to be on your side are the two most important things I feel are the most beneficial things to know in order to get yourself started. If there is a disability services, making sure that you meet with them when you go on a tour or call them on the phone, talk to them. What do you do? What is your process in order for me to be involved and get the accommodations that I need so that you will know, is this going to be more on myself or am I going to have, or is there somewhere on the campus that you contact your disability services and express, I'm visually impaired, I want to come to your campus. I was wanting to know what your process is and how you would be able to accommodate me. What would be your process be for that? That way you would know, are they going to contact my professors for me? That's something I have to do upon myself. You should also do this plenty in advance before school if you're able. So that way you have time to meet with teachers in advance, jive if they're going to work with you, your professors for that semester, send them a kind email. The first day after class, stop and say, excuse me, I'm so-and-so, I'm in your class. I was wondering if you'd be willing to talk with me about some slight accommodations I might need. And with also the understanding that, like Leon was stating earlier, there's only so much the professors can do because of their time restrictions. Just to reiterate what I've been saying, the most important things for you to do to self-advocate for yourself is to reach out, find out what's available in your state to you, and as well as specifically finding out what specific institution you want to go to and making sure that they're going to have the support for you, such as reaching out to a disability services, and if not, figuring out how that you can speak for yourself, not only as a blind individual, but as a person.
Thank you so much, Kayla. Thank you so much for joining us today on Becca's World. I really hope you enjoyed our candid conversation today. Please like, share, and hit the subscribe button. Peace out. Thank you for watching Becca's World. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel.
It's breaking.
I
have no idea what she's saying.
My computer is not keeping up with my dialogue. Let me try.
How's everybody doing while we're on this little break?
Another break.
I just think it's funny as I'll get up myself, to be honest with you.
How are you?
This has been the hottest run we've had so far.
Becca,
What?
your teeth look really good.
Mm.
I can't see that.
Oh, you're going to edit that out, right?
Nope.
Oh.
Well, how come the time I got to do all the talking, it messes up?
I know.
I had a lot of good stuff I was saying there. I got a whole tangent going on there. I was like, Kayla, slow down.
You know what that is, don't you?
What is that,
Leon, be
Leon?
nice.
You know what?
What's that?
That's the white man holding your back. They don't want you to get your message.
Oh, I knew he was going to say that.
Only problem is she's a white woman, so why would the white man hold a white woman back?
It's
Oh,
all,
I'm
it's
sorry,
all-
you're blind. You can't. You don't see color. So.
I'm intimidating, Brandon. That's
The story
fine.
goes that the white man holds everybody back.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, my God. How funny.
Blind lives matter.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh, don't go there, Leon. No.
What did he say? Did he say all lives matter?
Blind lives
Blind
matter.
lives matter?
Right, and it should be all
You're going to enter a
disabilities
whole
matter.
can of whooper worms right there.
No joke.
Disability lives matter.
There you go. There you go.
Sighted lives matter. That's
Well, what about people who are colorblind? What if you see in black and white?
I don't feel sorry for them, though. They can still see.
Yeah,
Sorry.
they can see, they can read.
Oh, Kayla.
Yeah, I have to beholder.
I'm going to excuse myself while we're on hold for a restroom break, and I will be right back.
Okay, that's fine.
Kayla, thanks.
Anybody else want to do that? Go ahead.
Yep, I'm gone.
I went and did that a little while ago.
Give me 2 minutes.
I didn't drink a ton of water.
Grab something to eat real quick.
Yeah, I didn't
Oh
know
boy, here we go.
I was late.
Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. I got to go. Ooh. Damn.
Can I have an ice cream sandwich, sister?
Oh no.
Oh, my God.
I want an ice cream sandwich.